it's well known within the committee that we don't test our RCDs. People don't test their RCDs at home. So we could write any number we like there and it wouldn't make a difference, in all honesty. So the train of thought behind it was, if we move it to 6 months, which again aligns with this technical report that I've spoke about earlier, 62350, but if you align it and make it a requirement only every 6 months, it gives some, if you, for instance, my example to my wife is, the clocks are changing this weekend, we need to test the RCD.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to another CF Tech Talking podcast. Today, RCDs, Dave.
RCDs.
RCDs.
Oh, the dark arts of the RCD.
Yeah, a bit of black magic going on. Now, RCDs are absolutely great, but we need to find out where we should be using them, when we should be using them, why do they keep changing the regulations?
Who can we ask about that?
If only we had someone.
What we need is someone that could talk about that with some authority.
Someone who sits maybe on subcommittee.
Who's the bloke over there in black?
Oh, here we go. It's Michael.
Hi guys.
Thank you for joining us again, Michael. We do delve into a lot of technical content here with the IET. And let's not forget, IET are partner sponsors of the Tech Talks that we're going around delivering. So if you want to come and have a look at those, please do. This time, we're going to really put you under the spotlight, mate, because we need to know about RCDs. I mean, RCDs in their own, probably a couple of minutes we could talk about that, but actually...
Well, they've been around for such a long time now, we sort of almost dismissed them, but we noticed this reduction in Amendment 2 of requirements to test. You think, well, does that mean they're getting more reliable, or we're requiring on them less, or why has that gone down? Why do we suddenly now only test them one time?
Let's go back a couple of steps. Let's go back to the last edition, and we, in the main, I think I'm right to say this. The majority of the RCDs that we've been installing have been Type AC.
Yep.
I think that's fair to say.
Fitted loads of them.
There's
Loads and loads of them.
Millions and millions of them.
I'm just about to go take them out.
Go and take them all out now, yeah.
Unfortunately, we've discovered that they can be blinded by DC, so we've now got lots and lots of other types. We've got A's, we've got B's, we've got F's at the moment, although...
More to come.
Well, maybe.
Yeah, we may be seeing product standards develop there and seeing more of them.
So before, it was quite easy. We just had one table 3A, which was in Appendix 3, and that gave our requirements. They were basically copy and pasted from 61008 and 61009, the RCD standard.
Yeah, so there's two standards that exist mainly for RCDs that we should be using, 61008 and 61009. However, they don't differ very much, do they? There are a few intricacies in there, but effectively the bit for us to worry about as Sparks is disconnection times are the same.
Exactly the same, yes.
For those that aren't inclined to dig around in British standards, what do they define? Operation parameters? Is it structural? What do the standard give you to work to?
It's the product standard, so it tells you how to make it, how it should operate, and how you should test it to verify it.
I mean, the tests are very, very stringent. You have to send it off to these third-party test laboratories. They have to test it for things such as put the test button through a certain amount of tests up and down, flicking it up and down, pressing it, making sure it's robust enough. Also, the toggle switches on there, making sure that they're robust enough. The enclosure does what it's meant to do under impact. All these things, longevity. So it takes quite a while to get them through.
And does the standard specify how it should be used in operation, such as when it should be tested and how it should be tested in operation?
No, not in operation, only as per the manufacturers. There's another report, and please don't quote me on the number. I'll do my best, but I believe it's TR62350, and that goes into a bit of detail about the test button.
So when we had all these tests that we used to have to do, where did they come from?
They come from the product standard. So that's what I say. It was a copy and paste from the product standard.
Right, yeah.
So there's that. And then we also have 61557, which is the test instrument standard. So that tells the manufacturers of the instrument how that the instrument needs to perform. Yeah. Right. So we were left with some pretty difficult choices in Subcommittee A, really, because we either had to really expand on Table 3A and have different requirements because... Type A RCDs have different requirements to Type AC, and it was either going to get really complicated, RCD testing was, or we had to simplify it. So we had the discussion, all the relevant people around the table, the manufacturers, the test instrument manufacturers, all sit around the table, and what we discussed was, we don't test circuit breakers. We don't test fuses.
Yeah, we don't. Do we test RCDs because we can.
I think that's probably what has happened in recent years, yes. But what we need to remember is it's a protective device and it only has a finite number of operations.
Yeah.
If we go and test its guts out throughout its life,
know.
when it's needed in anger, will it still be?
But we do know that the testing process improves its performance. So there's a balance to be split there, isn't it? Because they lubricate themselves every time they operate.
Not necessarily improves its performance, but will improve its effectiveness, maybe. So it won't guarantee, or it won't mean it's going to disconnect quicker after you've tested it, but we know full well that if you don't test it, it might not trip at all.
Exactly. So it does arguably improve its performance.
Well,
I don't want to split hairs with you, Darren, but that seems to be like a performance improvement.
Will it or won't it work? Yeah, I suppose, you could come from that angle. Because, I mean, we used to test half times positive, negative, used to test 1 times positive, negative, 5 times positive, negative, and then recently that changed, and it's changed again because nowadays we don't need to do hardly any of that. We just do 1 test now, don't we?
Just do 1 times. Something worth adding on this, some people will say, oh, it's still worth doing the half times test. Just so you know, when you turn your instrument to 1 times and press the button, it automatically does a half times test prior to doing the 1 times test to verify that the touch voltages are not going to be too high to carry out the test.
So them people that are thinking they need to do that, again, that's good.
But this is also one of the rare pieces of electrical equipment that the user is supposed to test.
Yes.
I mean, we're supposed to recommend every 6 months that they press that button and plunge themselves into darkness.
Now that changed. So let's start picking off these points then. So why did the change happen from 3 months to 6 months?
I think it's well known within the committee that we don't test our RCDs. People don't test their RCDs at home. So we could write any number we like there and it wouldn't make a difference, in all honesty. So the train of thought behind it was, if we move it to 6 months, which again aligns with this technical report that I've spoke about earlier, 62350, but if you align it and make it a requirement only every 6 months, it gives some, if you, for instance, my example to my wife is, the clocks are changing this weekend, we need to test the RCD.
Yeah.
And whilst it won't be every 6 months because the clocks don't change quite that, it'll be done twice a year, which is effectively.
Yeah, which is better than nothing, isn't it?
That is it, and that was the train of thought behind it. So.
Yeah. I mean, we Dave, you and I have looked at this and we've had discussions around this, and when does that test button need to be pressed? And on initial verification, you can pretty much press it whenever, can't you? And in your guidance note actually tells people to press it before moving on to anything else to prove it, functionality is the bit there. But I know through being exposed to many installations as I have, if I do that test button first, it will give the RCD the heads up that I'm about to test it. So in my many years testing installations, and again, just some the other month I was testing, I decided not to press the test button first. What I did was I'd done the 1 times test, and I wanted to see what was going to happen with the RCD. Now the RCD it was in a pub, so in a commercial setting. The RCD, I don't know if it had been tested every 6 months. I haven't got anything to prove that. So I thought, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll test this RCBO. I'll test it at 1 times. And it didn't disconnect the first time I tested it. It made a bit of a noise, and then the instrument told me it went into overtime. Now, after I got it to trip and then tested it again, at that point, it hit everything absolutely smack bang on time. It was perfect. So my argument is actually pressing a test button on already installed RCDs, actually you're giving it a heads up. What you need to do as a person, as an inspector going in, you need to identify if the installation is safe for continued use. So you need to find out if someone was to get a shock from any of them final circuits, would that RCD disconnect? And if you've just done that 1 times test and it hasn't disconnected, surely you've got evidence to suggest that the installation isn't being maintained by that button being tested every 6 months. I'm not suggesting you guys back at the subcommittee need to look at this, but I'm just suggesting for all those that are listening, just think about how you're applying the tests to existing RCDs, because I know full well, and talking to lots of other electricians across the UK, it can be a big, dangerous sore point.
It is, but the question then still would be, what do you do about it? Because we have asked the question now, I reckon, in excess of 6,000 plus electricians.
We have, yeah.
Who test their RCDs every 6 months? And I reckon we've had 3 hands go up, and one of them was an IET bloke.
Yeah, one of us asking for the toilet.
So we know. I mean, I don't. I've just had an RCD trip at home because water was dripping on a motorised valve under the boiler, and it tripped. But I hadn't pressed that test button in years. How do we instill that in a member of the public?
Oh, well, if we can't get the electrical community to do it, how are we then going to get the greater community to do it? This is a big concern, isn't it? So maybe this is where we go to electrical safety first and say there's a big campaign.
Well, used to be those public information films, didn't they? That lovely voice.
Yes.
Have you tested your RCDs, Mum? That's what we need.
Yes. Yeah, I tried to start a similar thing at the IET, actually, with the clocks going back thing. And we do that internal at the IET, but yes, it probably needs pushing by somebody like Electrical Safety First to the public.
So you guys here sitting in subcommittee, you've currently got it now where you've looked at RCD testing, and it says here that you only need to do the one times test. Yeah. Is that for any type of RCD?
That is, so the word in it is, it's regardless of RCD type. So whether it's an A, a B, an F or an AC, it's just the one times test. Now the reason we've chosen, I should say what the test is actually before I go on to it. Regardless of RCD type, an alternating current test shall be applied. I delta N. Now the reason we've chosen an alternating current test is if we take an A type, a B type or an F type, they all have to be tested on the AC setting.
They do, yeah.
So it was a common setting that applies to all. That was why we've chosen the AC setting.
So if you're worried that your RCD, you've installed an A type or a B type, and you're wondering how you would test it, don't worry. Your existing bit of kit will be able to perform the tests. There's been lots of actually grey on that area. Can it, can't it do it? So it's glad that finally you've cleared that one up for us. That's really important to get that. Now, on the certificate, on your schedule of test results, there is only one column now, isn't there? One outcome, and that's all to do with what you get at one times, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, you just record the one times value. And to be fair, what we discussed was, I'll say this quite lightly, but the value you get is almost a pinch of salt. It either operates or it doesn't. Chances are, if you've got a delayed time, etc., you should look at the way you're testing the RCD. I know a lot of electricians like to plug their 13 amp lead in and plug it into a socket outlet to do the test. And I understand that is very convenient to do. But
it's safer.
It is safe, yes, no, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But the downside to doing that is if you've got it plugged into a circuit and you've got other equipment on the circuit that has capacitors in, when you press your test button, that's going to trip the RCD, but the instrument will still see voltage from the capacitors on the equipment. Also, you can get capacitive coupling from just the wiring. You might say there's no equipment plugged in.
Larger
it can't
installations,
be. You can. So really, we should be carrying out the test at the terminals at the bottom of the RCD, and we should be using the method in IET Guidance Note 3, which is the terminal, so the top and bottom of the RCD. You don't just put the probes on the bottom of the RCD.
So what we're looking to do as installers when we turn up to do the tests is really ignore the final circuits. Ignore
just
them
test
final
the device.
circuits.
Yeah.
It's the device we're trying to get. So you shouldn't really be going down that form, putting readings next to every final circuit, because it's just the one device.
That's correct.
One test, one result, record it.
So if it falters on the first test, as you've described, and you get just noises but it doesn't trip,
Yep.
how are we coding? What are we doing when that happens?
You see, when I've found it in the past, and it's not as though I find it once in a blue moon, I find it quite a lot on the installations that I'm exposed to, unfortunately. All I'm doing is I'm recording that. I'm not giving it an outcome. I'm recording that I have evidence that the installation hasn't been maintained. And I bring it up with the duty holder or the homeowner that they need to be doing more. So it hasn't tested, it hasn't operated in the maximum time. You need to be aware of this because it's a life safety device.
It is. I would have thought that's a C2 because basically you've got a potential danger. It's not immediate danger, but we're saying anything which is a potential danger if something else happens, such as a fault on the circuit, the RCD doesn't trip. You've now got.
But it's not the device's fault. It's the maintenance.
It's the way it was brought up.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Went to the wrong school.
I'm not cross. I'm just disappointed. So that's the bit there. So you've got to get again. It's this educational piece, isn't it? We could put perfectly safe installations in. If they're misused, they become unsafe, and that's the bit here. It's a safe installation, but it's how it's being maintained or used. That's the big bit we've got to get across. So on finding an RCD that doesn't operate at one times test, the first time you test it, then yes, you've got cause for concern. Testing it again after it has tripped and you've got the lubricant moving around a little bit, at that point you're finding actually yes, now times it one time or testing at one times, it's doing what it needs to do. At that point, yes, it's starting to get on with what it's meant to be doing. You could pass that installation. But I personally think it would be wrong not to record it on the document you're about to hand over to the duty holder or homeowner. So yeah.
There we go. Interesting.
So RCDs, we've looked at, again, some changes that you guys have got. Anything new for the future in RCDs? We're going to see some new ones, big ones, small ones, cheaper by the thousand. What's going to happen to them?
Like I say, I have seen a new RCD on the market. It's called a super immunity RCD.
This is to DC, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So, but that's not official in the regs yet.
Yeah. So again, I mean, we do see changes to regs. I mean, we know that we've just got rid of ACs, haven't we? We know through chats with our continental cousins.
A's are looking dodgy.
In some installations, for some reasons, yeah. Some parts of Europe have looked at those. So I think our journey with RCDs isn't over. It's going to continue. So we're probably going to do another one of these.
And we haven't even talked about DC components. So the SI one is definitely the future, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, without a doubt. So thank you, Michael, for your time on that one. It's really, I mean, we could talk about RCDs forever, couldn't we?
Great,
But for now, thank you very much for listening to another CEF Tech Talking podcast. Don't forget, if you'd like this, please share, subscribe, and we hope to see you again soon at CEF Tech Talking Podcasts.